Good afternoon, everyone. How many of you have your lunch? Come on, that's not even half the audience. Did you miss the lunch to come to this session? Are you guys serious? I am really honored. You know, last year, this is a funny incident. I didn't prepare in the script, but I'll tell you. Last year, I did the resiliency session. That session was coinciding with Mark Rasnovich, his session. Hardly there was a person in the room. I was speaking to most of the empty chairs. I gave them that feedback. I was 100% sure that this year they'll cancel the resiliency session. And what happened? They gave me a room as big as Mark. When I entered here 15, 20 minutes ago, I looked at the room. I was like, who's going to fill all these chairs? But I'm thrilled to see all of you. Just making sure you know you are here for the resiliency session, right? Raise your hand, please. Fantastic. Makes me super happy. I'm Sudha Mahajan. I'm the Partner Product Manager in Azure Core. Today I'll be talking to you about resiliency. And if you have only come here because we had an outage a few days ago, please don't be. I'll be talking about it. Of course, I'll give you some nuggets, why and how you can prevent yourself from such kind of outages, but that's not the intent. Today, we'll be crafting a story together. And that story is about resiliency. It is about what Microsoft is doing, enhancing our platforms to make sure that all the customers who are coming to Azure are protected in several ways. This is where a partnership comes in, where I will leave you with some notes where you can go back and check one time if you are set up for a resilient architecture. With me, there will be two other co-presenters, my very esteemed colleague, Eric Henry, who will come later, and Jon Ormond, who will be showing some of the things that I'll tell you in action. Okay. So let's get started. But before I get started, how many of you actually came to San Francisco, or you flew to San Francisco today? Or maybe before Ignite? Pretty big number. And are the remaining people from San Francisco? I'm assuming, yes. Were you prepared in case the flight gets canceled because of weather condition or the government shutdown? Did you have a backup plan? How many of you had a backup plan? Two people in the room, okay. You are really at the right session. Except these two people who already knew what to do, 99.99 people are here for the right session, I'm telling you. Okay. Today we'll talk about customer resiliency, which practically means what is resiliency? There can be a number of definitions floating around, what it means to you, what it means to us, what it means to anyone else. We'll be talking about that. How are we advancing in resiliency? This is where I said it's a shared responsibility or it's shared partnership. We'll talk about it, what Microsoft is doing to improve the resiliency texture. Then we'll discuss the real customer stories, which could be related to outage, but what we have heard from our customers in the field, S500 enterprises, SMBs, how they are doing in terms of this resiliency and resilient architecture. And multi-region strategy, which we are pushing for. And then we'll leave you with some closing remarks. Believe me, in the beginning, it may sound like a lecture. Sure, it can be pretty much like that. We'll try to make it as interesting as possible, but as Jon and Eric were telling me behind the stage, we are not professional entertainers, so don't expect too much from us. It's the content that matters, so we'll go over that as well. Okay, let's get started now. Number one, why do you think we have resiliency challenges? There are multiple reasons. Let me just start with a few of them. Number one, there's a confusion in the responsibility. Yes, you come to Azure. It is the number one or number two cloud, however you want to define it, by numbers or by revenue, but we are among the top hyperscalers. There might be an understanding that whatever Microsoft does, everything that we do, you are protected. But there is a part of this responsibility where we expect, sure, I introduced something to you, but did you try it? Were you set up for that? So there's a little bit of confusion. Second is early stage prioritization. What does it mean? Means when you are setting up your architecture, are you thinking that every node, every endpoint, every connection has to be resilient? Probably no. What are we thinking about? Oh, let me migrate my infra from on-prem to cloud. If you're not born in cloud, let me see how I can reduce my cost on the cloud. Cost optimization comes first, and many times during that setup, you forget that resiliency is the #1 feature. If you have to think about one thing, prevent yourself from any kind of possible, impossible, planned, unplanned scenario that may happen. Third could be lack of awareness. We have not done a very good job. Let me just tell you, we have tons of documentations available. We'll say WAF, CAF. You might have heard these terms from our field, from us, from CSUs. What does it mean? It does mean that, okay, go and look for the documentation. We have crafted best case scenarios. You may know about them, you may not, but entirely we left it to you, which is not a great thing, which practically means there is lack of awareness. What's the right thing to do? Then we also don't have metrics. You don't have visibility into, am I set up the right way? Am I set up the way that Microsoft told me to? Or am I set up the way that it should have been to prevent me from any outages? No, you don't. Today, when I'll be talking about where we are taking the responsibility, I'll show you and I'll give you the visibility into some of the metrics that we are launching today, which will let you try the site failovers. And then inconsistency in terms of best practice adoption. It could be, again, because of the lack of knowledge. It could be very much because of the cost structure. And there also, I'm going to talk about some things where we have done good job in optimizing the cost for you, but giving you more resilient features at the same price point. If you like it at that point of time, if you want to clap, please do. Oh, I didn't even start. I didn't even give you anything. You can hold on to that. Okay. Guys, you know, what in 1991, apparently there was a paper written, which I have not read, but the slide came from there, which is like, you know what? There are so many places where things can go wrong. And we are not protected. We have not built defenses in every place. So let's go ahead and build it. This is a Lego that tells you that accidents can happen at any stage. At times, we are trying to fit a triangle in a circle. It may not be the right Lego block, but we are defended. The whole point here is to shrink those cycles or to shrink those circles, triangles, so that there's no leakage happening. Recently, you have heard about, I'm 100% sure most of you in this room have heard about Azure front door outage that happened a couple of weeks ago. Actually, I just want to see the hand of a person who have not heard about that outage. Please raise your hand if you do not know about what I'm talking about. Wow. As I said, that may have driven this traffic to this room. But where did we go wrong? AFD is not a bad product. We have built every defense, then where did we go wrong? This is where sometimes that enough defense is also not enough. Let's say you had taken your flight, it was all perfect, the weather was perfect, you're not expecting anything, and the government shutdown leads to 20% of the flights being canceled. You were not prepared for this scenario. This is where some of those leakages can happen that you're never prepared for. It's the same thing happened in Azure front door. A bad config led to a global outage. Very simple questions. You all are sitting in this room. You can ask Sudha, what were you doing? Don't you have last known good state? Don't you have tenant isolation that you caused a global outage? Do you not know how to prevent against these outages? We know all of these things. They all came in practice during that time, but still this failure happened. That is when we say that there are layers of defense, bad things can still happen, which are outside our control, which is outside your control as well. So then what are we talking about? We are talking about a partnership that you and us have to walk together. If you look at this slide, let's start from the bottom. What is Resilient Foundation? Resilient Foundation is where we take 100% of the accountability. We say, Microsoft, make sure your services are fully resilient. Means like, am I zonal? I'll be talking about the zonal. What does it mean? Like, you know, zone redundant services, which of them are zone redundant, which are coming up pretty soon. But we build these capabilities. Tomorrow, for example, the entire region goes down. There is a site level backup available to you. Then we are talking about what is your application. You might be coming from an airline industry. You might be coming from a hospital. You might be coming from any life and safety. You might be running your 911 on Azure. the question to you, it's not important to you whether we are 100% available or not, but that is important to you because your application needs to be 100% available to the customers. Your customers are not going to come and ask us, they're going to ask you, are you resilient? And the second box that we are talking about, when my responsibility is to make sure that you have all the tools in hand, are you using those right tools to leverage and make sure that your applications are redundant? We can go in the AI. I'm going to talk less about AI today, but let me just tell you, I'm sure you are hearing all across Ignite, it's AI, AI, AI. But here we are talking about the real stuff. Let's say we build ChatGPT. Sorry. Okay, we built ChatGPT and you're not using it, then what's the purpose? Same thing, we built a strong connectivity, a resilient connective solution, but if you're not using it, it's less useful. And this is where we say reliable systems is a partnership. What do we do? In Azure, what you see is the external boundary. This is basically a geography, which comprises of multiple Azure regions. And when you talk about the regions, at least one region in this geography has multiple availability zones. What is the advantage of this? When we talk about multiple availability zone, what we are doing is we are replicating the data from one availability zone in a serial manner to another and then to another. What happens during this time, if one goes down, your data is still available to you in second and third. So AZs, that will be a theme that you'll consistently hear from me across the presentation, that there are certain services now which are going to be zone resilient by default. So, and then regions with AZ, they comprise of physically separated AZs, which means each zone is backed by independent power, cooling, and networking. Exactly what I said, if AZ1 goes down, 2 and 3 are still available to you, and you can continue to have that connectivity to Azure without failure. A very simple thing, we may have multiple options. That also means you have a choice to choose from what do you want to do. If you think about it, every workload does not have to be 100% resilient. You are the decision maker here. If you're using test workload or you're using a simple VM and a single VM which requires only 99.9% or 3 nines of availability, you can still be protected against any kind of accidental data loss using premium storage. But if the story doesn't end there, the data can get corrupted. All you need is a data center kind of prevention. Then we'll say you can use VMS Flex and also look at availability zones, which is a very, very critical element and can provide you with 4 nines of SLA. But let's say even if that's not enough, you need even more. Then protect your data by using Azure Site Recovery in multiple regions. Here we guarantee you the least amount of time which is needed for RPO and RTO. Look at what your goals are. We provide industry standard RPO and RTO goals, but it depends on what your needs are. If your need is for test environment, maybe all of this is not important, but if you're running a production workload, and that too I gave you an example, within an industry also it entirely depends. Let's say you are an airline industry and all you're doing is a workload which is talking to airline traffic controller. This is really critical. But if it's a customer service and you do not believe that it is that mission critical, you can absolutely choose in between where does it lie and which model you want to choose from. Okay, backup. Backup is really important. Again, as I said, if it sounds like a lecture, to some degree it is, because we are telling you to use some of the things that we already have. Let's talk about something else. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Those were the basic things that I was telling you, why resiliency is important, what you should be doing about it, what are we doing about it. Let me start with the basic layer, which is networking, the foundational layer. If you're an enterprise company and you also have your workloads on-prem and onto cloud, let me just start with the connectivity solutions. By the way, how many of you represents the workload which are on-prem and on cloud? Fantastic. That's quite a substantial group of people. I know a lot of companies are now born in cloud, so some of these things may not matter to you, but we still have a huge number of enterprises who have data on-prem and are connecting to cloud. So ExpressRoute, which is one of our product, most of the people, and I know it's really sad when I say this, are using standard circuit. What does it mean? It's a standard resiliency. You're only connected to one site. Why are you using it? Because first mistake was on our part. We introduced ExpressRoute this way, so it's not your fault. You started using it because we had it and it was available for you to use. Which means with this single circuit, it has two legs, both of them connected to a single location. Tomorrow if outage happened, Chicago-like outage, God prevents, the entire data center can go down, and if you were only connected to that data center, the entire connectivity was lost. Or the reason I said was lost because 2 years ago, that outage really happened. It was an Equinix site, the water chillers did not work well, the entire center went down, and the real enterprises who were only using single site could not connect. I won't name some of them, but it was really bad outage for us. What do we recommend? We introduced something called maximum resiliency. This is the best practice that we recommend. We introduced guided portal experience. This is not new. This was introduced last year. What you have to do is you have to use 2 ExpressRoute circuits, which means the 2 legs going to one side, the 2 legs going to another side. Now you're protected not just with the site resiliency, you're also protected with the circuit resiliency. And that is what we recommend. But I completely hear you. It increases your cost. It gives you much better SLA, but then this is 2x the cost. So you might be thinking, what is Sudha telling us, right? I'm not here to get more money out of you. So here is it. High resiliency. We introduced something called Metro, Metro, where at the same cost, we are giving you site resiliency. It's the same ExpressRoute circuit. The 2 legs are now going to 2 different locations. We are live in 15 metros, and in another 6 to 8 months, we'll be live in another 8 metro locations. It gives you a much better SLA, 3 nines of SLA at the same price point. Actually, if you go to our site, it's slightly cheaper. So this is something that I want to leave you with. We are giving you much better resiliency, but you have to go and choose the metro option. In certain cases, by default, it will be selected for you for all the regions where the metro is available. You have to opt out to go to another one. Besides that, we were talking about the telemetry. At times, the confusion comes in because you don't have the data to decide whether this is the right setup or not. So today, we are also introducing ExpressRoute Resiliency Insights. This is the information right in front of your eyes when you're setting up. It will tell you the circuits that you have set up. Are they redundant? Sorry, are they resilient or not? What are you missing? If you see on the right-hand side, there's a information that tells you that you have 4 recommendations, and these recommendations are telling you you have gaps in your resiliency. Go ahead and fix it. So please go ahead and fix it. Do not ignore. This is where your and my partnership comes in. I introduce this product to you, you go ahead and act on those. Besides that, validation. Till now, the story goes, I gave you a metro location, I gave you a product that is resilient, I also gave you the validation insights that are available, but now I'm telling you, on a single click, what you can do is, you can fail over to test if there's a problem in the routes that you have set up. And if the failover fails, or it tells you that, there's a problem with non-redundant routes, you can do that in the test scenario, and right away you have the information which will prevent you from any outage that can happen in future. So, introducing today, and this product is going GA, ExpressRoute Resiliency Validation. Okay, one other product that I'm super proud of, we announced the GA yesterday, it's introducing zone redundant NAT gateways. Just checking, how many people are networking experts in this room? Okay. I represent networking too, so I'm a little bit passionate about it. So in NAT gateway, by default, we are introducing resiliency at no extra cost. Means now NAT gateway is zone redundant at the same price point. It is also future ready because now it also supports IPv6, and it gives you new traffic analytics or insights with the NAT gateway flow logs. Besides that, the scalability. The scale of this has gone from 50 Gbps to 100 Gbps for NAT gateway. And yes, I know this has been a big pain point for many enterprises, so people who are using networking, I know you should be happy about it. Also, when it comes to packets per second, from 5 million, we have gone to 10 million. So scale, efficiency, and in terms of like zone redundancy, so resiliency, scalability, and efficiency. And by the way, the attach can be now done at VNet level and not just at the subnet level. By default, it gets attached to all the subnets. Okay, load balancer. This is also resiliency at scale. By default now, the standard load balancer is redundant by default. On top of it, we have global load balancer, which enables the load distribution to the nearest possible geography. It automatically looks for, if one of the region goes down, it goes to another one, and it protects you from any kind of outages. Now, we are also supporting availability zones, which means it is designed for fail-safe behavior. Okay, I had to put this slide, guys, because as I said, many of you came to hear about this Azure front door outage. We are not introducing anything new. It's not that we don't have anything to say. The reason behind that is we are coming up with a lot of enhancements in this product, but we are not ready to announce them today. But why I put this slide? This is where we want to say that had this outage, there were places or there were ways where the impact of this outage could have been negligible. Our first strategy that we recommend, use Traffic Manager or Azure Traffic Manager in front of Azure Front Door. That's the number one thing we recommend. What it will do is it will make sure that the failover to origin happens in case Azure Front Door is not available. So please keep that in mind. You can also use App Gateway and WAF because AFD has L7 layer protection already built in. And if you use App Gateway and WAF, it gives you similar line of defense using ATM. Second, we also say, look, like it's not just us, but I would say that look at the active kind of scenario, how you can be protected. If you have to use a multi-CDN, it's completely okay if that helps you to protect, but choose something more carefully. Again, use ATM or App Gateway in front of it so that you're far more protected in any kind of outage. So, sorry. You know, I said enough about Microsoft and Azure. I acknowledge there was a front door outage, but I also acknowledge a couple of weeks before that another hyperscaler had an outage, and that was on DNS. Is there anyone in the room who has not heard about that outage, which was not on Azure? Okay, good. We are not the only one famous, I'm glad. Okay, so that outage was on DNS, not on Azure DNS, somewhere else, right? So our DNS, this slide is particularly talk about what we have. Our Azure DNS is resilient by default. The resources that you put, for example, private resolver, DNS security policy, or private zones, these are default, redundant by default, which means you do not have to create multiple instances. You are protected. In addition to that, we also protect you against multi-region failover. So, sorry, failure, which means if one region goes down, with Azure Public DNS and Traffic Manager, which are global services, we'll fall back on another region without having any impact on you. Let me call upon John. I know you heard a lot of the lecture, but lecture is only fun when it is demonstrated with some action. So John is going to actually show you some of these networking features in action.
Sudha mentioned earlier the ExpressRoute resiliency insights and validation, and that's what I'd really like to show you today. If we can flip to the demo. If we can flip to the demo. Oh, it's up. All right.
Here I've selected the West US 2 ExpressRoute Gateway. Again, that's under the monitoring. You'll see the Insights tab. First, when I look at this, the first thing I see is the resiliency index. This shows how closely your design aligns with our best practices. You may not get it up to 100%, but it helps to prioritize the improvements, whether they be architectural, financial, or even operational, to get that score up. Next is the recommendations, and next after that is failover readiness, and then the main content window. We see the route view, arguably the most important part of this feature. This shows, again, from the gateway's perspective, that the gateway is connected to a Seattle and Washington, D.C. circuit, and it analyzes the routes that are sent from on-prem. So if we look at route set number 1, we can see that this route, 10.3.40.0/25, is advertised on both the Seattle and Washington, D.C. circuits. So in the event of failure, the circuits have a path on the other circuit. Now, if we look at route set 2, here I've added some extra routes only to the Washington, D.C. circuit. So if the DC circuit were to fail, these routes would be orphaned. Now, they're not really critical to our routing in the demo today, but just added them as an example of what non-symmetrical routing would look like if this was a real-world example. I would want to examine, should these be on the other side or not? So anyway, we'll close that, and now we can actually run the test itself. So this is the validation feature that I'm showing here. And I'm going to go ahead and configure a new test on the Seattle circuit. This opens a flyout window. We've got some important information that we need to review, including there's other tabs up there. Most importantly, the route redundancy. All routes are advertised on both sides. So, and I've got 2 warnings down here to make sure the circuit's not under maintenance. Also to make sure that the route list is redundant on both sides. And then finally, I need to copy the gateway name down there. Now remember, this will stop traffic on the Seattle circuit. It's simulating a full site failure, but the data path will actually go down in Seattle. Best to do this during a maintenance window or during non-working hours, that kind of thing. I'm going to go ahead and say start simulation. This is again going to take down the Seattle ExpressRoute connection to the gateway, simulating that full co-location site failure. Now this takes about a minute, so I'm going to skip ahead. Or switch over to the VM in West US. And this is a serial console. This is actually pinging down to my on-prem. Here's that 10.3.4.10 route that we saw earlier. I see the milliseconds around 5 to 6, which is going from Seattle to West US 2. Makes sense. All right, again, this is going to take about a minute, so I'm going to skip ahead for the failure to actually occur. There. Okay, now we can see that the Seattle circuit is down. And we can see that because the latency has jumped from 5 milliseconds to 65 milliseconds because now it's going all the way across the US. So this is exactly what we want. We can go back to the resiliency screen and I can stop the simulation. Yes, I was able to complete and it's that, so we'll stop that. Again, this will take a minute. Okay, test is done. And I'll go back to the Insights tab. Now, the resiliency index hasn't updated yet. That takes some time to update, but once it's done, it should be about 40% once that test is recognized. If I test the DC circuit, it will increase even further. So that's a quick look at resiliency insights and resiliency validation, 2 powerful tools to help you design and test your ExpressRoute deployment for real-world resilience.
All right.
Thank you, John. Guys, I have 2 more demos. Again, I'll be talking a little less, but I'll be showing you actually things in action. So just hold on to your breath a little bit more. Shifting gears, we talked about the fundamental layer that was networking, shifting to now compute, the reason why you come to Azure. If you have workloads which are stateless in nature or they are stateful in nature, we have 2 ways of protecting them against the blast radius. One, I started with acknowledging, yes, it's a partnership where we can actually do something together to be resilient, but I'll tell you one thing, if outage has to happen, which is completely outside our control for the things that we do not know it will happen. What's the number 2 thing that you can do? If the outage happens, make sure the blast radius is lower. What are your goals to keep in mind, whether you are thinking about a stateless or a stateful pattern for your VM workloads? Number 1 or number 2 things should be, what are your RTO goals? What is the cost that you're looking for? And if you are protecting yourself against region or zonal failures. If you are thinking about a stateless workload or a stateless VM kind of thing, protecting against regional or zonal, make sure the auto healing is enabled. The number 1 thing that we are showing you is on the ATM, for example, the global traffic manager, or you use a load balancer, which is also global in nature. You have 2 VMs attached to it in region 1 and region 2. Depending on what your goals are, you can actually go for zonal active, active, or active passive, or you can go for regional active or active-passive. For stateful, what we are saying is data replication is very important. If it's super important for you, make sure your regional ASR is set up properly. You also have ZRS, which is like disk and zonal, again, for the backup recovery and data resiliency. So if you have set it up properly and you are replicating it against various AZs, then you are very well protected. That's another thing that we are telling you for blast radius protection, not for the outage protection. If outage has to happen, it will happen. This is to reduce the blast radius. Okay, two things that I'm going to announce today which are generally available. One, your single instance regional VM, how can you migrate to availability zone? And the second, zonal expansion, which is move of regional VMSS to another zonal VMSS. That is also generally available. Basically, what we are doing is, in a single region, we are putting the VNets, disk, and your compute together in the single availability zone. So that way, if one goes down, everything is available to you in availability zone 2 and 3. Databricks is another beneficiary of it because now it can scale with millions of VM, which is deployed a day. Another thing that we are going to go GA, some of the previous, I do not know if you have seen, but there was a compute session prior to this, and also there's a separate resiliency session which has already happened, where they demoed introduction of business continuity center, or so-called the resiliency on Azure. It's a single pane of glass, a single place where you can see all of these things together. Number one, how are you governing your application? The application-centric experience. Is your application protected or your workloads are set up in the right way or not? You can see it in this business continuity center. Second, what are your goals? Do you want your VMs to be zonal? Do you want your VMs to be zone redundant, or you want them to be regional in nature? Advisor will continue to monitor that and will tell you if you are meeting your goals or not. Then we have validate drills and resiliency posture. So from time to time, the Chaos Studio will tell you, it's been long. When was the last time you conducted a drill for your BCDR? Okay, now is the time. So things are being put in front of you at your fingertips. Besides that, we also have monitoring metrics. We are trying to now accelerate your zonal resiliency deployment using this. So what basically we are doing is, resiliency is a platform. As a platform, you have Azure Monitor, Advisor, and Chaos Studio coming in together in this business continuity center. We also have guided experience, which is now integrated well with Azure Copilot. You can ask a question, you'll get a response. And this is purpose-built for all QCS, and what we call it QCS and SQCS basically is the term that we use, which is quality critical services, things like dial-tone services, DNS, or think about Azure Front Door, things like that. So it is all available to you in Business Continuity Center, a single place where you can go and observe all of this. This is getting GA today. With that, I'll call upon John to show us some of these things in action. Guys, words are words. Action is there.
All right, so yeah, we're going to see some of those features, including the Copilot integration, which is one of my favorite parts of this.
In this demo, we'll show how the new resiliency experiences help Contoso enhance zonal resilience by protecting resources and improving the resiliency of their critical applications. Meet Alex, a cloud architect at Contoso Mart. She's responsible for maintaining the company's cloud resilience and ensuring that critical applications remain available during outages. Post her experience with a recent outage, she turns to Azure Copilot for guidance on strengthening Contoso Mart's resiliency. Copilot guides her to the resiliency in Azure for unified resilience management. Resiliency in Azure provides Alex with a one-glance view of Contoso Mart's overall resilience posture, along with zonal resiliency insights and actionable recommendations. Using top actions, she learns about a new Azure feature called Service Group for organizing application resources and dependencies. She can use it to track and improve the resiliency posture of Contoso Mart's business-critical applications. With a few guided steps using Copilot, Alex quickly sets up a service group named Contoso Mart Pay to oversee Contoso Mart's key payment application. Alex discovers she can set resiliency goals for the newly created Contoso Mart Pay application to ensure high availability during zonal outage. After setting goals, Alex is directed to the Service Group Recommendation page for insights. On the Service Group Resiliency page, Alex sees the overall resiliency status for 𝗬𝗀𝗻𝗂𝗧. She notices a critical recommendation highlighting the linked PostgreSQL server as non-resilient and decides to explore it further. Alex reviews the detailed recommendation powered by Azure Advisor, which suggests to enable high availability with zone redundant option. She decides to implement the fix using Copilot. Copilot detects and informs Alex that the PostgreSQL instance needs to switch from burstable to general purpose SKU before enabling zonal redundancy, noting this will cause brief downtime and medium cost impact. To enable faster remediation, Copilot generates two scripts, one to upgrade the SKU and another to replicate the standby server to a second availability zone. Alex can run these scripts at a convenient time to minimize impact on production. Once applied, all resources are zonally resilient, making the 𝗬𝗀𝗻𝗂𝗧 application fully zonally resilient. After fixing the resiliency recommendations for 𝗬𝗀𝗻𝗂𝗧, Alex navigates to the overview page to review the updated resiliency status of her resources and business-critical applications. She sees that post-deployment of the Copilot-generated scripts, all her resources are now zonally resilient.
Fantastic. By the way, I'm very impressed to see you all are here. If you didn't leave the room because you liked the content, I'm honored. If you didn't leave the room because you didn't want to offend us, I am super honored. Okay, I'll take quick 1 minute to introduce some new features in Azure Storage that we're doing, and we'll do the last demo. After that, I'll invite Eric on the stage. We're running a little behind time. I'm not very good at keeping all of this. Today, we are launching two important things: replication across zones, you know that, and replication across regions. In between these two, we are introducing smart tiering, which automatically decides the blobs between hot, cool, and cold tiers. Many of you have complained to us, we are telling you to replicate your data to prevent, but it adds up to the cost. This is one of the important features which will keep your cost low, so consider using it one time. This is in preview as of today. Besides that, replication across regions, we are introducing planned failover with zero data loss. It's going GA. Then proximity replication within 15 minutes of SLA. That's GA as of today. And then cross-region replication, but cross-zone region replication is going preview today. For BCDR, you already know that Azure Backup with vaulted backup was always available. For ADLS and files, it is being introduced today. For actually premium SSD disk and ultra disk, we are introducing site recovery and instant access snapshot. What's coming next? We can wait for that. But let me just hand it over to John to run the third demo on storage. See it in action yourself and decide.
This is a quick demo of the Smart Tier storage option for storage, one of my favorite new features.
Smart Tier is configured at the account level. We are using the Azure portal to create a new storage account with Smart Tier as a default tier. Smart Tier is available today for zonal redundancies. I am therefore changing the redundancy for this new account to ZRS, and on the next tab, we can then select Smart as the default for all objects. So we don't need to worry anymore about manual tier placement across the hot, cool, and cold access tiers. I am uploading a few data sets with mixed access patterns that infer the selected default tier, and from now on these objects will be monitored and inactive objects that will be tiered down fully automatically. Let us switch to an existing storage account now, so we can leverage these new capabilities for existing data. This storage account's default access tier is currently set to hot tier. I have many data sets with different access patterns hosted on this account. Most of the data sets are using the default account tier, hot inferred. Other objects are explicitly tiered to hot tier. By switching the default tier setting to smart for this account, all objects that are not explicitly tiered will automatically be moved to smart tier and are monitored in the same way as new objects would be. We are not billing tier change transactions for moving objects into smart tier. There is no need to enable any additional tooling or policies to leverage automatic cost savings. Smart Tier will keep regularly accessed objects always on the hot capacity tier and starts down tiering inactive objects after 30 days to the cool tier capacity tier and after an additional 60 days to the cold capacity tier. Once you access the object through a read or write operation, the object will immediately be tiered back to the hot tier. The rehydration is instant. This initial operation will already be billed against the hot tier. This means you're getting the best of both worlds. The automatic down-tiering of inactive data, paired with the billing model simplifications of Smart Tier, can lead to drastic cost savings over time, making it the ideal access tier for many scenarios where you can either not fully anticipate access patterns or don't want to explicitly manage tier transitions. In the metrics view of the storage account, we can see the distribution across the capacity tiers for smart-tiered objects for both object count and capacity. As we can see in this example, most of our objects are not being accessed regularly, and after being stored on the hot capacity tier initially, most of them are being moved to the cool and cold tier over time, drastically reducing the capacity charges for those objects without any manual intervention.
Guys, let me call upon this stage Eric Henry, who is going to tell you not AI but real customer stories. Eric.
Thank you, Sudha.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Henry. I'm a chief architect in our global customer success organization, and I have the pleasure of speaking with customers regularly about resiliency and building resilient workloads in Azure. I have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to have to go very, very quickly through a few of these slides here and touch on a few key points. A lot of this isn't new information, but it's important to reinforce some of the concepts as we think about resiliency for our workloads and driving resiliency across our organizations. The first one here, as Sudha mentioned, there's the shared responsibility model. For driving application resiliency, we want to make sure we're thinking not just about what the platform provides, but what our business requires, what our availability targets are, our recovery time objectives are, and our recovery point objectives are, so that as we plan and architect our workloads to meet our targets, we know exactly what it is we're trying to achieve here. Key point here is that as your availability targets go up, your cost increases as well. So it's important to always make sure you're architecting to your requirements, right? Because not every workload needs tier 0 mission critical availability with near 0 RPO and RTO. For some applications, tier 2 or tier 3 may be more appropriate and more cost effective. So if we look at priorities for risk reduction, there are 3 essential steps to strengthen your application resiliency posture. The first, as I mentioned, is availability targets, recovery time objectives, and recovery point objectives. You should always be defining all of your workloads so you can essentially architect to those requirements so you know that what is important to the business is what you're building. Next, highly recommend engaging with your Microsoft account team to help you map out your resiliency strategy. We can work with you to align your architecture and the services with the Microsoft well-architected framework to ensure your architecture is robust and optimized for performance and recovery tailored to your specific needs. And last but not least, in this model, we do recommend a combined approach to resiliency. Zone level redundancy protects against localized failures, while multi-region BCDR protects against broader regional disruptions. We do recommend a layered approach that takes advantage of both of these types of protection. That's really critical for your mission critical applications. What we've got here, and I won't drain this slide, is essentially a workload criticality classification framework. If your organization doesn't already have something like this, we do recommend creating this to drive consistent resiliency across your organization. The goal is for essentially classifying your workloads and defining your resiliency targets, your availability targets, and your recovery objectives. Again, I won't drain this slide, but super important to have something like this to drive resiliency across your organization. I'm down to less than a minute. I had a diagram. I was going to talk about composite availability target estimates. If you don't use those, please check the Well-Architected Framework article here in this slide. Really great way of identifying changes to your architecture and how they impact your kind of what reliability you can expect for those workloads. So Azure Accelerate, I mentioned engaging with Microsoft account teams. Please visit aka.ms/Azure Accelerate. To find out more, Jon, Sudha, and I will be available in the hall after this session. If you have any questions, thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Jon, come on in.